They laid an illegal pipeline through my ranch, so I seized the water rights and left them dry. My name's Cole McKinnon, and I've never been one to start fights. But I don't walk away from them either, not when it's about my land, my blood, and everything my father left me. The ranch has been in my family for 4 generations, 2,300 acres of stubborn Texas clay, mesquite trees, longhorns, and more sun than a man should have to deal with. I moved back after my father passed, quit a lucrative engineering job in Dallas to take care of the land that raised me. It wasn't glamorous, wasn't easy, but it was honest. When I first moved back, the place was run down. Fences were falling apart. Water tanks were rusted through. The well pump coughed like a dying mule. But it was ours, and I rebuilt it from the roots up. 2 years later, I had the ranch turning a profit again, rotational grazing, solar water pumps, even started bottling our own groundwater for nearby towns. That water was my lifeline in this drought-stricken part of the state. Then came the HOA. It started subtle. A glossy newsletter appeared in my mailbox, welcoming me to the Dry Hollow Lakeside Estates Homeowners Association. Lakeside. This place hasn't seen a puddle in months. I tossed it. Thought maybe someone was confused. But the next week came another. Then someone left a flyer on my gate. Then came the knocks. Her name was Karen Rutherford, president of the HOA that shouldn't exist. She had teeth too white for someone who never smiled, and a clipboard that looked like it was surgically attached to her hand, always flanked by 2 other board members in pastel polos, as if they were selling pyramid schemes out of a golf cart. "You're inside the boundary now," she said. "Not asking, telling. Your land's been annexed." I just laughed. "This is a working ranch, ma'am. I don't live in a subdivision." She smiled, thin and cold. "The county approved our annexation last year. It's all official. We sent notices." "No, you didn't." Well, you're on the rolls now. "And we need access to the southern edge of your land. That's where the new pipeline will be laid." I cut her off. "Pipeline for irrigation and decorative lake refilling. HOA funded. We've already begun phase 1. I stood still. Something cold settled in my gut. "You laid pipe on my land. It's all on file with our municipal partners. You should attend a board meeting." That was the beginning of hell. 2 days later, I found the trench, 6 feet deep, a swath of raw earth bulldozed across the south pasture where my bulls grazed. PVC pipes snaked through it like a tapeworm. My old oaks uprooted, fencing gone, livestock scattered. No notice, no permission, no easement, nothing. I stormed into their office, just a rented trailer 2 miles east by a fake fountain they kept calling Lake Serenity. They told me, calmly, that their surveyor had included my land and that eminent domain was pending. I laughed in disbelief. "You're not the damn government. You're a fake HOA." They threatened fine, liens, legal action. They called the sheriff when I refused to leave. The sheriff shook my hand privately and whispered, "I've had 5 complaints about them this month, but if it's civil court, my hands are tied." I went home. My ranch looked like a war zone. My cattle had busted fences and wandered off. My water tanks were drained. Someone had tapped my well, routed the pressure into their pipeline. That was the final straw. I started digging. Not literally, not yet, but through records, online databases, and backroom whispers. Karen's HOA had formed less than a year ago. It wasn't registered with the state the way legitimate HOAs are. Instead, they filed as a private utility improvement district through a shell company. And that company had ties to her husband, Reed Rutherford, who just happened to sit on the county zoning board. Turns out they had a grand plan, build a series of fake lakes across unincorporated lands to drive up property value, then flip the development to a real estate conglomerate. They had started with me, my land, my water, and it all hinged on stealing my well. I called an old friend, Santiago, a water rights attorney in Austin. Together, we pulled the deed my great-grandfather had secured senior groundwater rights to the aquifer in 1936. Not only was I entitled to every gallon, but I could legally deny access to all downstream taps, especially unauthorized ones. I installed new valves, locked the pressure regulators, shut the access ports tight. Then I threw the main switch. The fake lake dried up in 6 hours. Their fountains sputtered. The fake grass browned. Sprinklers died mid-spin. The HOA trailer running a garden tap straight from my main line had no water to flush their own toilets. Karen showed up at my gate in full meltdown, accused me of sabotage, theft, abuse of my duties as a member. I calmly handed her a certified letter. "You're trespassing," I said, "and I'm filing a restraining order." Then I posted it all online. If they thought I'd just turn the water back on and walk away, they didn't know me, and they sure as hell didn't understand this land. The day after I shut off the flow, everything exploded. By 7 a.m., the man-made pond they dubbed Lake Serenity looked like the aftermath of a biblical plague. Dead koi fish baked in the sun. Kids' paddle boats were stranded on dry, cracking mud. The HOA's prized floating pavilion sat at an awkward angle, half submerged in sludge. Residents were livid. I heard it all over the scanner. Half the neighborhood was demanding refunds for dues. The other half demanded someone fix their lawns. A few even tried to blame me, until the story I'd posted online started to go viral. My Facebook post got shared 8,000 times in 2 days. A single image me standing by my busted fence. The pipeline trench behind me was picked up by the local news. The caption read, "Ranchers' water stolen by rogue HOA development." Then he cut them off. By the end of the week, I had reporters from Austin, San Antonio, even Dallas calling. Karen, meanwhile, had gone radio silent. Well, not completely. I got hit with a cease and desist letter. Their attorney, some guy named Brent, who operated out of a strip mall, claimed I was in violation of Article 3 of the HOA integration plan, which, of course, didn't apply to me because I never signed a damn thing. They also said I damaged public infrastructure and endangered community wellness by shutting off municipal irrigation services. I sent the letter to Santiago. He laughed so hard he choked on his coffee. We drafted a reply citing Texas groundwater law, property trespass statutes, and unlawful annexation codes. We sent our letter to the county, the sheriff's office, and this was Santiago's idea, the local agriculture commissioner. Turns out, I wasn't the only landowner they'd tried to roll over. That's how I met Alma Rivera. She owned 150 acres 2 miles north of me, Wildflower Meadows, a goat dairy, and a bed and breakfast operation she ran with her daughter. The HOA had tried to build a nature trail through her wild pasture. They said it was for community wellness access, she told me, eyes burning. I told them to go to hell. Next day, I found survey stakes on my property. She'd filed complaints, been ignored. So when she saw my post, she reached out. Within a week, we formed a coalition: ranchers, farmers, old homesteaders, even a few fed-up HOA members. We called ourselves the Hollow Truth, and we made a plan. Our goal was simple: prove fraud. Karen's HOA wasn't legit, but we needed documents, paperwork, proof of misused funds, falsified surveys, bribery, something that would make the county sit up and listen. Alma's daughter, Casey, used to intern for a local developer. She taught us how to dig into zoning records, permit databases, and most helpfully, the land annexation archives. And there it was, a permit filed using my name. They'd forged my signature. It said I had authorized temporary easement access for pipeline infrastructure in cooperation with Dry Hollow Lakeside Estates HOA. That was the nail in their coffin. The county scheduled a public meeting 2 weeks later. Karen showed up with Reed and a small army of HOA board members in matching blue polos. They looked smug walking in. They weren't when they walked out. Santiago presented the forged documents. Alma showed drone footage of illegal grading on her land. A third rancher named Don testified about an unauthorized drainage ditch that had caused flooding on his property. Then the floor opened. 50 residents took the mic. 23 of them accused Karen and Reed of coercion, mismanagement, and lies. One woman cried about her destroyed rose garden. A retired veteran raged about his water bills. And then Karen made the mistake of speaking. She blamed a few entitled landowners with outdated claims and said the HOA was working in the best interest of the community's aesthetic harmony. I got up, walked to the mic, and said, "Aesthetic harmony doesn't mean theft. You stole my water, you bulldozed my land, you forged my name, and now the land's speaking back." The applause shook the windows. The county launched a formal investigation. The zoning board suspended Reed indefinitely. Karen resigned 3 days later, citing online harassment and media bias. But we weren't done. We filed civil suits for trespass, water theft, and forgery. Santiago handled mine. Alma filed hers independently. A group of residents launched a petition to dissolve the fake HOA entirely. It reached the state attorney general's office in a month. They opened a fraud inquiry. For a while, it looked like the system was going to bury it all. We'd exposed the fraud, confronted the thieves, turned public opinion, but still, the wheels of justice moved slower than molasses in January. I'd done my part. I thought maybe I'd get to go back to running cattle, fixing fences, and listening to cicadas without worrying about fake bylaws or forged permits. But when the empire collapses, it doesn't go quietly. It crashes. 3 weeks after Karen's resignation, I got a visit I didn't expect. A woman named Darla showed up in a dusty sedan, tears in her eyes, a baby carrier in one hand. She was a resident in the new section of Dry Hollow, and she was panicked. They turned off our water. I blinked. Who did the HOA, or whoever's left of it? They said it's your fault. That the well you cut off serviced the entire Phase 2 extension, and without your cooperation, they're shutting down services until further notice. They were blaming me, the man whose water they stole, because I wouldn't let them keep stealing it. I took her around the ranch, showed her the well system, explained how water rights work in Texas, that the HOA had never had legal access, that they had never told the truth. By the time she left, she asked to join the Hollow Truth, and she wasn't alone. Casey, the daughter of Alma, was the one who cracked the code. She managed to get access to a leaked Zoom recording. HOA members had been using a private platform for development meetings. Most were boring, but one clip, that one was nuclear. It featured Karen and Reed in conversation with a man named Brooks Halden, a developer out of Austin. They talked numbers, flip strategies, water control. At one point, Karen said, "Clear as a bell. Once we get McKinnon out of the way, we can dig straight through to the secondary aquifer. The county won't stop us once the park's open and people are settled in." That was it. Intent, conspiracy, illegal development under the guise of beautification, water theft turned into land seizure. We sent the recording to every news station from Waco to El Paso. By now, the story had legs. Major news outlets picked it up. The Great Texas Water Grab, how a fake HOA tried to flip an entire community. Suddenly, everyone wanted to interview me. They sent camera crews to the ranch, caught footage of dried-up fields where my grass once grew, cows wandering near the pipeline trench, my boots kicking up dust near the empty stock tanks. But it wasn't about me anymore. The press started interviewing the residents of Dry Hollow, seniors who'd had their water rationed, families charged outrageous HOA water fees, and ranchers like Alma, who showed reporters the wildflower fields now scarred by tire tracks and PVC. The pressure grew. Within 2 weeks, the Texas Land Office opened a full-scale probe. Karen Rutherford was indicted on 4 counts: forgery of land documents, illegal use of municipal influence for personal gain, theft of natural resources, fraudulent incorporation of a non-compliant HOA. Reed was next, then Brooks Halden, then 2 surveyors and a zoning clerk. It was a domino line of corruption, and they all started flipping on each other. Karen claimed Reed lied to her. Reed said Karen forged everything. Brooks blamed incompetent consultants. But none of it mattered. The law had enough to seize all HOA-held funds, dissolve the district, and place the community under emergency municipal supervision. That should have been the end. But the residents, now free of HOA threats, wanted more. They didn't just want punishment. They wanted repair, restoration, justice. Darla and a few others formed the Dry Hollow Neighborhood Alliance. They petitioned the county to reallocate seized HOA funds to compensate affected landowners and rebuild what was damaged. To my shock, they proposed restoring the natural watershed that Karen's group had diverted for their fake lake. Volunteers helped me dig up old irrigation maps. Alma donated native seeds. Local teenagers helped plant wild grasses to stabilize the soil. I watched the land come alive again, slowly. Rain returned in patches. Wildlife started poking around the creek beds. Even the longhorns started acting less spooked, and people strangers before all this began talking over fences again. I thought we were done, but Reed Rutherford had one last card to play. 3 months after the indictments, he filed a countersuit claiming that my cutting off the water was an act of rural extremism and had caused irreparable harm to a growing residential district. His lawyer accused me of being a sovereign citizen type, and they demanded I pay $1.2 million in damages. Santiago's eyes twinkled when he read the complaint. He responded by filing a $2.5 million countersuit for slander, emotional distress, malicious prosecution, and trespass with intent to defraud. We went to court, and when that tape of Karen calling me a stubborn hick in the way of progress was played in front of a jury, the decision came fast. I won. The court awarded me $890,000 in damages. The land won, too. A year later, things feel different. Not quieter ranching, never is, but cleaner, more honest. Dry Hollow now has an open water committee made of residents and local ranchers. There's no HOA, no secret bylaws, just shared wells, volunteer work, and real cooperation. Alma started offering guided wildflower tours again. Darla runs a weekend market out of her garage where neighbors trade fresh eggs, goat cheese, and garden starters. People wave again. And me, I put the money back into the ranch. Dug deeper wells, installed a community hydrant open to all during droughts, planted shelter trees along the old trench, turned it into a footpath trail and marked it with a small wooden sign. Here stood the line they drew, and here we took it back. What would you have done? Do property lines, signatures, or survival matter more when the system is bent against you? When a few people with money and influence try to take what's yours, how far should someone go to stop them? Let me know where you draw the line. Share your thoughts on justice, property, and the fight between community and corruption.